Section 3 of the development chapter deals with the different ways to develop, and basically there's only two ways. There's the self-sufficiency path and the international trade path. If a country follows the self-sufficiency path, they generally game the system. You can do that by passing laws to decrease the foreign ownership in your country. You can increase tariffs on imports coming into your country. You can establish quotas of material coming into your country. You just generally game the system, and you do that because you want to be self-sufficient. And there's a whole bunch of problems like that. A chief one would be inefficiency. If you don't want to follow the self-sufficiency path, you could try the international trade path. And what economists say is that voluntary trade benefits both parties. In other words, if it really is a voluntary trade, both parties must have estimated that it was in their self-interest to do the deal. So there are two winners. There is not a winner and a loser. There are two winners. This principle holds true whether it's dealing with you and me as individuals, whether it's Florida trading oranges with Virginia for tobacco, or if it's the United States trading Boeings for coffee with Brazil. In other words, voluntary trade benefits both parties. Here we have Indian bureaucracy. This picture is taken from the Rice to Riches economy. This is in India. It's 1985, and I'm stopped at a gas station to get some gasoline, and if you can see that pad right there, that's 4 or 5 different receipts. They give 4 or 5 different receipts to me and the owner and the government and who knows who else. I mean, just can you imagine how inefficient and gunked up that would make the system? So here's another situation. I was in St. Petersburg, Russia in 1992, and I'm at this factory that produces turbines for big dams. And so these turbines are rotating at 1,000,000 RPMs per minute, and so you need special metallurgy to do that. You need special tools to do that, and the workers need special knowledge and training and skills to be able to work on that equipment. So I'm having lunch with the plant manager, and of course there was 3 of us, or maybe 4 of us, and we went through most of a fifth of vodka. They like to drink it straight, and so you just have to do that at lunch. And I'm talking to him, and I ask him, well, how much does it cost to produce this thing? And he doesn't know. And I ask him, well, how much do you sell it for? And he doesn't know that either. And it's just incredible. And if there was a new technology, he would not want to introduce it into his plant because he doesn't reap any of the benefits or any of the profits from that. And all that does, introducing a new technology, just upsets his apple cart. So it really is an upside down situation where the Russians wanted to retard introducing new technology, whereas the Americans would jump at it. So it's a tremendous difference between attitudes and between economic structure. When we talk about the international trade approach, probably the best examples would be in Asia. You can call them the 4 dragons or the 4 tigers. It doesn't matter. It would include the countries of South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, and Hong Kong. And all 4 of those countries have had dramatic development in 50 years. Usually when you're talking about development, you're talking about many lifetimes. But in just 50 years, these countries have gone from 0 to 100 miles an hour. It's really something to witness. Here is a graph showing the percent trade is of GDP for both developing countries, rich countries, and poor countries. And you see that both of us, did well after 1995. We were on the upswing here. And you can see that developing countries are not doing quite as well as we have, and that trade increased more than GDP did. So in other words, that underscores what I was saying earlier, is that trade benefits both parties. Look at this dramatic example in the graph. So here I was in India somewhere around this time period, and you had this stifling bureaucracy. I mean, it's bureaucracy run amok. Can you imagine having to do that? And here in 1991, they convert from the self-sufficiency model to the international trade model, and look what's happening. So what that means is that the average Indian has seen a dramatic improvement in their welfare. and that's what you want an economy to do. So I think it underscores that the international approach probably has won out. I think most people in the world and most countries in the world would think that the international trade approach is the best way to fly. So we had this big recession in 2008, and it raised the question, which is the better way to deal with it? Do you try to stimulate the economy, or do you try to have austerity? And generally, Europe tried the austerity approach, and the United States used the stimulus approach, and I think most people would say that we won. Our growth rates are better, our bank solvency is better, employment is better. You know, we started the quantitative easing program several years before the Europeans did. So we have much better statistics than most of the European countries do. What happens when you're in a poor country and you need help? You need to turn to the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, and they have something called a Structural Adjustments Program, and when you hear that, you would shudder. Because what it means is, if we're going to loan you some money, you're going to have to change your way of doing business, and you're going to have to listen to us, and that means you're going to have to reduce spending, and that means you're going to have public protests. And so here you have protests in Greece. They're not happy with those structural impediments that the IMF imposed. And so we have had this running battle between Northern Europeans and Southern Europeans, and it can be epitomized by the Germans versus the Greeks. So the Germans are Northern Europe, they're Protestant, they're savers. You look at the Greeks, they're in Southern Europe, they're Catholic and they're spenders. They have different language families and different cultures, and it just drives the Germans crazy. The Greeks want money. They say we have so indebted ourselves that we can't get out of debt unless you forego some of it. And the Germans, who have a lot of fiscal rectitude in their culture, just go bananas. So Angela Merkel in Germany doesn't want to give money to Greece unless Greece does some things. Greece has had the worst tax collection system probably in the whole world. The Greeks played a game of not paying the taxes. There was one incident when a tax collector actually collected some tax, he was fired. So it is a real cultural difference. Development in the United States. We started sooner than anybody else did for the most part. You know, the Industrial Revolution started in Great Britain, but they kind of fumbled the ball, and the Americans picked it up and ran for a touchdown. That's my metaphor. So we've been doing this about 200 years longer than a lot of other people, a lot of other countries. And one of the reasons we live so well is that we have a lack of tradition, so we are not bound like the Japanese are. And because of that, we could experiment with things, and so that meant our productivity would be higher than most other countries, which it has been. And using the principle of compound interest, you know, if you only have a tiny bit of difference in your productivity rate, but you compound that thing for 200 years, it means you'll have the difference between night and day. And if you go travel, you'll verify that there's a night and day difference between our country and other countries. And so that's why I'm such a big believer in travel. I recommend that you stop taking classes, save some money, and go north, east, south, or west. Just check the world out, and you'll see how much better deal we have it here than there. Thanks. Bye.